You may not realize it yet, but there's a moment, a silent, private moment, when your life splits in two. The life you're living and the life that no longer feels like yours. You're still showing up. You're still functioning. You're still wearing the face they know. But something is off, like a ghost behind your smile. Like you're sleepwalking inside a version of yourself that no longer fits. This isn't burnout. It's not a bad day. It's something deeper and far more difficult to name. It's the quiet collapse of the identity you built to survive, and the terrifying realization that you no longer recognize who you've become. You may have everything you thought you wanted, but still feel strangely absent from your own success. You laugh, but it feels performed. You're praised, but it feels hollow. You're surrounded, but feel deeply unseen. You've outgrown the self you once needed to become, but you don't yet know who you are without it. That in-between space, the psychological free fall, is what I call the Mirrorphase collapse, and that's what this video is here to explore. Carl Jung warned us that the masks we wear to be accepted can become prisons we forget how to take off. This is where it starts. The invisible breaking point, where the roles you played stop working, where the identity that earned you approval starts costing you your soul. And if you're here, you're likely standing on that edge. You want clarity. You want language for this rupture inside you. You want to know you're not crazy, and that there's a way through. This video is your mirror. You'll learn what this emotional fracture really is, and why you're not alone in feeling it. What Jung knew about identity collapse, and why it signals not the end, but the beginning. How to stop performing a life you no longer believe in, and how to listen, maybe for the first time, to the self that's been waiting behind the mask. This isn't a motivational video. It's a reckoning. And if you stay with it, you won't rise back into who you were. You'll rise into someone you've never met, but who's been with you all along. You did everything right. You worked hard. You adapted. You fit in. And yet, you feel strangely absent from the life you built. You're not broken, but something's missing. And the deeper truth is, you might not be living as you. You might be living as who you needed to become, to be accepted, admired, or safe. This video is not about psychology. It's about recognizing when you've vanished from your own life and how to find your way back. Carl Jung warned us, when we wear the persona too long, we forget we're wearing a mask. The result? You succeed, but feel disconnected. You smile, but feel numb. You become who they wanted, but lose who you are. I call this moment the Mirrorphase collapse, when the identity you've built no longer reflects the truth inside you. It's the subtle, terrifying sense that your life doesn't fit anymore. And worse, that you've outgrown your reflection. But here's the truth. This collapse isn't the end. It's the invitation, the beginning of remembering. Not how to succeed, but how to return to yourself. Most people don't realize the self they show the world isn't really them. It's a role, a reaction, a performance shaped by survival. Carl Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear to function in society. It's the version of us that knows how to smile, how to please, how to adapt. It learns what earns praise and what earns silence. It becomes charming, competent, agreeable, even wise. But beneath it, the real self waits, unseen. At first, the persona protects you. It keeps you safe in a world that demands performance. It helps you be liked, loved, even celebrated. But over time, something begins to ache. not on the outside, but deep within. The trap is subtle. You start believing the mask is your identity. You chase more approval, more praise, more perfection. But inside, you feel hollow. If something in you stirred while listening, trust it. These aren't just ideas. They're fragments of a truth you've always carried. Subscribe to Deeper Rewind for more unspoken insights. The kind that don't just explain, but remember you. Jung warned of this moment. The persona is a compromise between the individual and society as to what a man appears to be. But what you appear to be is not who you are. And when that mask becomes permanent, you lose access to your inner truth. You laugh, but feel fake. You succeed, but feel empty. You connect, but feel unknown. And the worst part, no one sees that you're disappearing, because from the outside, you look exactly as they expect you to. Jung understood this as the psychic cost of belonging. When you trade truth for safety, when you bury your real self beneath expectations, a fracture forms, small at first, but then it grows, and one day, the image you've maintained begins to rot, not because you're weak, but because you're ready to remember. The persona isn't evil. It was necessary, but it was never supposed to be permanent. When it hardens, it doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. And it's in that moment that the mirror phase begins. You don't always notice when it begins. It's quiet, unceremonious, not an explosion, but an erosion. You wake up, and nothing fits. The job, the habits, the people you once wanted to impress, they're all still there. But you've gone missing. This is the moment of psychic disintegration Jung warned us about. Not madness, not breakdown, but the unraveling of a self that was built on performance instead of truth. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Carl Jung. This collapse can look like depression, but it's not always sadness. Sometimes it's numbness. Sometimes it's a fog that follows you through everything. Sometimes it's the unbearable quiet of no longer believing in your own story. You speak, but it doesn't feel like your voice. You smile, but your body doesn't believe you. You succeed and feel nothing. This is the moment your identity begins to fracture. The image, the mask, the momentum, it all starts slipping. But the world doesn't see the collapse, because from the outside, you still look functional, maybe even thriving. But inside, your soul is calling a halt. You've outgrown the illusion, and the self you wore, the one that kept you safe, admired, employed, can no longer hold you. You're not falling apart. You're falling out of someone you're not anymore. Jung described this phase as a confrontation with the shadow, the rejected, denied, and disowned parts of the psyche. The collapse summons them, not as enemies, but as truth-bearers. They arrive in emotion, in dreams, in shame, in grief, in the question no one else hears: is this who I really am? This isn't failure. This is the invitation. Not to rebuild the same life, but to let something deeper take form. And in the wreckage of who you were told to be, something sacred begins to stir. Let's be honest. You were never taught how to be whole. You were taught how to be acceptable. From the first moment you were praised for good behavior, you learned the rules. Be polite. Be useful. Be impressive. Be normal. But never be real. This world doesn't want your authenticity. It wants your functionality. It wants your resume, not your reflection. Your smile, not your sorrow. Your performance, not your presence. And when you succeed inside this system, When you finally become what they told you to be, you're rewarded with approval, with applause, with emptiness. Carl Jung saw this long before it was obvious. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Because we were raised to believe that silence is strength, that control is character, that pain is weakness, and needing something deeper means you're broken. But what if you're not broken? What if the emptiness isn't a flaw, but a message? The fall is never loud, but the rising, it's quieter still. There is no spotlight, no audience, no celebration, only breath. And the soft, terrifying question, if I'm not who I was pretending to be, who am I now? You don't rebuild the same life. You don't reassemble the mask. You begin again, not as an image, but as a presence. Carl Jung called this process individuation, not becoming perfect, but becoming whole, not polishing your persona, but integrating the parts of you that were exiled to survive. The anger, the grief, the hunger, the softness, the voice that went unheard. All of it finally allowed to exist in the light. This isn't healing the way most people imagine it. It's not neat, not linear. It doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like remembering, like finding something sacred you forgot you were carrying. You begin to move differently. You speak slower. You stop chasing applause. You stop making yourself smaller for rooms that never saw you. You begin to trust silence again, to choose meaning over momentum, and sometimes to disappoint the world in order to stay loyal to your soul. No one teaches this part because it doesn't sell, it doesn't perform. But this is the part Jung devoted his life to. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You don't rise back into your old life. You rise into a life that can finally hold you. And this time, you're not performing. You're not proving. You're not pretending. You're here. And for the first time, so is your soul. If you're here, if something in this spoke to a part of you that doesn't have words yet, then let this be your first truth. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're not broken. You're awakening. Awakening doesn't feel like light. Not at first. It feels like grief, like confusion, like standing in the ruins of a life that no longer fits. That's not weakness. That's the moment of return. If you don't know what to do now, that's okay. You're not meant to rebuild immediately. You're meant to become still enough to hear the parts of you that were silenced for too long. So, start here. Don't rush to reinvent. Don't perform your healing. Don't turn your collapse into a content strategy. Let yourself be unresolved. Ask questions without needing answers. What part of me never got to speak? What version of me did I kill to be accepted? What would remain if I stopped pretending? Let these questions move through you. Walk slowly. Say no more often. Say yes, only when it feels real. And if everything still feels unclear, good. You're closer than you've ever been. Carl Jung once said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. But there comes a moment when the disguise falls, when the mirror shatters, when the performance ends, and who you are finally steps forward." If you're walking through this collapse, you're not alone. Speak in the comments, even if it's just to say, "I'm here." Because when we speak from the place where we stopped pretending, we don't just find ourselves, we help others find their way back too. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to drop a comment below and share your opinions. We read every single one. Thanks for watching.